felt a lot of frustration and anger yesterday, not towards any of the victims. It was towards Miss Susan L. Opper. And I won't even throw shots back at her. Again, I choose to take the high road. In spite of the clear language that was used by her, I'm not gonna fire back. I'm not gonna do that. Am I angry? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. But so what?
You can see Darrell Brooks Jr. just furious with Sue Opper. Now, you see this here where he says, look, I'm not going to, resort to low blows. I'm not going to attack you. I want to attack you. I'm angry. I'm festering angry, but I'm not going to attack you. I'm going to take the high road. I respect Zach Witchow, even though he basically called him. I respect Lindsay Daisy, whatever her name is. That's the one person out of everybody whose name I don't ever remember. But she never had that moment, like Zach Witchow had, or like how Sue Opper had throughout the trial, or Judge Darrell. She was kind of like, she was like the silent Beatle. She was the George Harrison of prosecution team. The only person that spoke less than her was the investigator that for months I thought was a paralegal. That guy never said anything. He just dressed dapper, had good posture, very emotionless, great poker face. But I mean, this middle prosecutor there, I don't know if she was doing the paperwork or if she was the strategist, something like that. I don't know. I can't speak English. But the point is that I have no doubt that she's very competent. But I just never saw her, her mic drop moment. And if you know of a mic drop moment, please leave it in the comments because I don't know of one. But the reality of the matter is that for Darrell to try to split up prosecution team by saying, I respect you, but I don't respect how you did your job because you didn't have to do it this way. And you don't really know the real Darrell Brooks Jr. You just see the police reports and the victims, but you don't know the real Darrell Brooks and the struggle that I have been through. I mean, this is Darrell Brooks Jr. to a T. I mean, the whole trial, this was his whole MO. I'm the victim. You don't know what I've been through. I'm suffering from mental health issues. I have tried to struggle with this. I have tried to deal with this. By trying to struggle with it, I mean that he's tried to at least recognize that it's a force in his life, let alone he hasn't really tried to address it. I mean, look, this guy had rap videos where, like, I don't know if you saw The Business, but The Business, he's got like a tray with foil on the top in an empty refrigerator. Lord only knows what was in that tray. I don't think it was lasagna. He's got other videos where he's like gang banging. Looks like he's wearing gang colors. I don't know if he's fronting or if he's really in a gang. But the reality of the matter is that even the vehicle that he used, for this heinous crime, he used it against Erica and ran over her foot. And it's also in these rap videos. He lied to the police officers during that interrogation. He scarfed down McDonald's. He scarfed down Cokes. The whole while he's there, acting the fool. He's pretending like, I don't know why I'm here. You know why you're there. You've been through the system enough to know that you're not going to have FBI agents come in. You're not going to have two officers sit with you for the extension of 4 to 5 hours, nitpicking a simple domestic violence crime. Not to say that domestic violence crimes are simple, but I mean, you're not going to get an FBI response for one. And the whole trial, his antics, I mean, the whole time, his insensitivity towards the witnesses, the survivors, and some of the victims, there were people that he actually struck that were able to get up on that stand and look him in the eye, and he'd roll his eyes and he'd talk under his breath. A lot of times he wore that mask. He wasn't wearing that mask because of COVID. He was wearing that mask to be able to undermine the process, But during sentencing, it's very interesting that he reserved so much anger against Sue Opper, and I think it's because she's a woman. I think it's because she never showed any fear of him. I think it's because maybe she was in charge of prosecution team. And again, I don't know if she was in charge or not, but I think she was, just by the amount of talking that she did, the amount of direction that she provided, her interactions with the judge. A lot of the time, she was the person speaking for prosecution team. So it would lead me to believe that she was the lead prosecutor or at least in charge of that particular trial. But the reality of the matter, though, is that Darrell Brooks Jr. had scorn for her. He said, I'm not going to get into a he said, she said. He wanted to insult her. He wanted to probably threaten her. He knew that, save for an actual threat of violence, he could have said whatever he wanted, like he could have in his closing. I think he knew that he had the ability to basically say whatever he wanted. And I think that he knew that, this was going to be televised. He knew the whole time it was going to be televised. Even when Sue Opper pled with him to please obscure the identities of the witnesses and survivors, he said, hey, this is a public trial. They don't get any exceptions. They don't get any consideration, even though he may have killed someone in their family or left someone in their family in a wheelchair or maybe struck them. He didn't care because, after all, it's a public trial, right? So let it all be public. Let them suffer more. Let them be the subject of conversation on social media. You know what I mean? I have never done that, but, unfortunately, others have. And Darrell Brooks Jr. has a strong amount of support on here. I don't know if it's because of Dawn. I don't know if it's because of Dr. Mary Edwards. Dr. Mary Edwards has a podcast, and I don't know what the numbers are. We have no way of knowing what her listenership is, and we have no way of knowing if her supporters are the same people that are on YouTube saying that Darrell didn't get a fair trial, that a lot of Darrell's past shouldn't have come in, that a lot of Darrell's past was irrelevant. And I'm saying, how can it be irrelevant if the guy's got a history of domestic violence, a history of using things like vehicles as weapons, a history of lying? I mean, if anything else, his honesty is in question, because this is a guy that cannot tell the truth. He is incapable of telling the truth. And it isn't just when it incriminates him or not, just in general, he is a very untrustworthy individual. And so the reality of the matter is, I think that it was very interesting that he saved it for the sentencing to really make it a point that, look, prosecution's got a job to do. How can you be mad at somebody for doing their job? 2 out of the 3 of you, I don't have an issue with, but you, Sue Opper, I do. You, Sue Opper. And at other times, not maybe during the closing or sentencing, he actually said she wasn't smart. He had a real issue with her, did not like her, and made it very clear to anybody that would listen. And I think that, he didn't do that to Judge Opper. It should have been Judge Opper, but he didn't do that to Judge Darrell, who I give a 97 to. I cannot, speak enough as to the fact that I don't have anything against Judge Darrell. When you give somebody a 97, for crying out loud, that's an A. That's an A plus. What's not an A plus, but it's an A. And the fact is that, he wasn't as angry with her as he was with, Sue Opper, because Judge Darrell actually had to leave the court one time just because he was staring at her. And Sue Opper would have begged for that opportunity, because Sue Opper would have stared him right back down and probably wouldn't have spent too much time staring at him either, because she was there to do a job. That's about the only honest thing Darrell Brooks Jr. said. Prosecution was there to do a job, and that's what they did. And Sue Opper, very much so, wasn't going to waste the taxpayers' money. And that's why ultimately I think that Judge Darrell lost her bid for Supreme Court, is because of how much taxpayer money was actually wasted during this trial. Now, granted, it wasn't a long trial. I think it lasted all of 2 or 3 weeks. But the fact that you had hours, I mean, there's a guy on YouTube from Singapore. I don't know if his channel is up or if he just wrote an article for his blog, but he said that there was like hours of just dead air. You know what I mean? Hours of and that can happen in any situation, but hours though, in a 3-week time span, I mean, even an hour is insane. But there was just time where there was just nothing going on. And Darrell was running the proverbial clock, because in his idea, in his mind, anything he could do to stall the process was good. And that's why later, towards the sentencing, towards the closings and all that, he said, look, I'm not trying to derail the process. I'm not trying to slow the process. Of course you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be saying so. But I thought it was very interesting how much animosity he had towards Sue Opper. And I'm curious what you think. I would think that you would agree, but maybe not. Maybe Sue Opper didn't do her job right. But she got a conviction, and he hated her for it. And to me, job well done.